If this segment aired a week from now, it may well be in breach of the law. Today's Spotlight platforms a UK activist on the brink of being classed as a terrorist. 31-year-old Huda Amori founded Palestine Action in 2020 with the stated aim of preventing the commission of genocide and war crimes in Palestine. Today, the group is fighting a terrorist prescription in the UK's High Court after the government put a motion before Parliament to ban the group, alleging it is a threat to national security. If Parliament approves by this weekend, being a member of or inviting support of the group would face a prison sentence of up to 14 years. UK Home Secretary Yvette Cooper announced the plans, saying Palestine Action has, quote, a long history of unacceptable criminal damage, and this government will not tolerate those who put national security at risk. Her announcement came 3 days after activists from the group broke into the RAF's Brize Norton base and defaced 2 military aircrafts with red spray paint, a major security embarrassment to the UK government as it seeks to bolster its defence credentials internationally. If prescribed, Palestine Action will join a list of 81 organisations banned under the Terrorism Act of 2000, including Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and National Action, a neo-Nazi organisation that outwardly celebrated the murder of Labour MP Joe Cox in 2016. Many have condemned the government's decision. Former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn called it absurd and authoritarian, and a group of UN experts published a statement today urging the UK government not to misuse terrorism laws. Earlier today, I spoke to Palestine Action founder Huda Amori. I started by asking her why the group opted to trespass on Ministry of Defence property and target the RAF jets.
Was taken because flights leave there daily to go to RAF Akrotiri, a British military base, which then is sending flights over Gaza for surveillance flights constantly in order to assist the genocide in Gaza. But there's also flights leaving Brize Norton to Akrotiri, which can carry cargo, including weapons, including soldiers, and as well as flights that can refuel fighter jets in the air, which has been claimed to have been used to refuel Israeli fighter jets. And we know this for a fact. One of the planes that was targeted was used to refuel a fighter jet which was used to bomb Yemen in 2024.
But these actions have been labelled by the Home Secretary a national security threat. Is Palestine Action a national security threat?
No, I mean, the fact that it was so simple to break into this military base and use scooters, they can't really blame the activists for that side of it. But what I would say is this action, people have been breaking into British military bases. It was our first action at a British military base. They have been doing this for decades. They did this against the Iraq War. Keir Starmer defended a group of people who did a similar action, and many have been acquitted because they were acting to prevent the greater crime. And so when you do take action to prevent the war crimes being committed, it can be a lawful act to do. So this isn't a national security threat. What's a national security threat is Britain actively engaging in the genocide in Gaza.
If this isn't a national security threat, then why do you think that the government is claiming it is?
The government and Elbit Systems, Israel's biggest weapons firm, our main target, and pro-Israel groups, including We Believe in Israel, Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, and the Israeli government themselves, have been lobbying the government for years to use counter-terrorism powers against Palestine Action. There was a report by We Believe in Israel before the Brize Norton action, about a week or two before, with a lot of false information in it and a lot of exaggerated information as well and misinterpreted, which was echoed. The language in that report was echoed a lot in what the Home Secretary said when she wanted to prescribe Palestine Action. And that's what's really fundamentally wrong here, as well as a lot of other things with this threatened prescription, is that the Home Secretary has obviously been consulted extensively by Israeli weapons manufacturers, by the Israeli government, pro-Israel lobby groups, but has not once discussed this with Palestine Action, has not once discussed this with our legal team, hasn't discussed this with any human rights organizations. So has got a completely one-sided view on the situation and is acting on their request. And I think that should be terrifying for everyone, because this is taking away everyone's right to free speech in Britain. It's a huge attack on our civil liberties, and it's being done to protect Israeli weapons manufacturers that are operating in Britain that we have targeted repeatedly over the past few years. They are the driving force behind this threatened prescription.
I have to say, Huda, you're in a pretty difficult position right now, potentially facing, up to 14 years in prison. Was being charged as a terrorist a risk that you ever considered when you founded this group?
No, it wasn't something that I believed or expected, and I don't think anyone should expect to be labeled a terrorist. Am I surprised? Not necessarily, but it's still really shocking that they would go this far to attack, people's rights in this way, in order to protect a foreign genocidal regime. And that's exactly what's happening here. But I think what they're doing is really exposing how far they are willing to go in order to protect the Zionist regime. And it's something that everyone has to strongly oppose.
You described this as an attack on your rights, and I wonder whether there are other behaviours that you or your fellow activists at Palestine Action have experienced by authorities, by law enforcement, that you would also consider an attack on your rights or authoritarian or overreaches.
Yeah, I mean, I think if people understand the history of Palestine Action, which has been going for 5 years, there have been a lot of instances when the state has clamped down, overreached in order to try and deter the movement from taking action. We've had extreme raids, counter-terrorism police have been involved since Labour got in power in investigating some people in Palestine Action. It's only happened since Labour got into power. We've had ridiculous charges and defeated ridiculous charges in the past. And we also have 18 people currently in prison, and also 5 people who have been in solitary confinement since last Thursday for spraying paint on 2 warplanes. So the state has taken draconian measures before, but every time it failed to stop Palestine Action. And this is what they're desperate to do. They're desperate to stop us. And so they've gone to a complete extreme beyond what their own supposed laws tell them they're allowed to do in terms of prescribing direct action and protest groups. But this is because Palestine Action has been effective over the years. We have permanently shut down Israeli weapons factories. We've cost them billions of pounds in lost contracts, and we've done it for the Palestinian people. And we are working to opposite ends. The government is working to assist the genocide, and we are working to stop it.
You pointed out that, you haven't really backed off. Even this potential terrorist prescription has not seemed to have perturbed the group. Today, Palestine Action shared footage of another spray paint-based protest at the headquarters of defence contractor Elbit Systems in Bristol. Do you not worry that this might hurt your legal battle? Do you think that continuing this kind of activism now is unwise?
No, quite the opposite. I think if there was an impending prescription, then, we are going to continue as normal. We're not a banned group as of today. And we are trying to take action to stop us from being a banned group. But there is a genocide happening in Gaza. So we're not going to slow down at this point to help a legal case. And, I think it would be unwise for us to think that we could trick the courts into thinking that we don't take direct action. We do take direct action. We have been doing for years. And these are the types of actions that we have been doing for years, shutting down these factories, occupying these buildings, and stopping and disrupting the genocidal military supply chain that runs through towns and cities across Britain.
The government is prescribing Palestine Action alongside 2 other groups. Maniac's Murder Cult, which is a neo-Nazi white supremacist group that has claimed responsibility for a number of violent attacks, and the Russian Imperial Movement, which has set up a military wing to facilitate Russia's annexation of Ukraine. How do you feel about these associations?
I mean, it's quite comical in the reality of things, but if it wasn't so serious, it's very strange, and it's quite clear that there's not been any mention of these groups before. It's quite clear that the Home Secretary is doing this to try and ensure that that the vote goes through to prescribe it, because you have to vote for all three in one vote. And I think if you just see what they're doing here, it's completely trying to stitch up the system to go into their favour. Everything about this process has been completely anti-democratic. We're talking about a domestic protest group, and you're putting them alongside neo-Nazi groups that call themselves Maniacs Murder Cult, and expecting to have the same debate. And so you're wanting to do one of the most draconian attacks on people's civil liberties, and at the same time throw in some far-right neo-Nazi groups. It's clear what she's trying to do. And I think it's just ridiculous, and none of these MPs should be voting to prescribers on the basis that they've added in some groups that the vast majority of us have never heard of before. This is a serious thing they're about to do, and I think it's just quite insane that they come up with these ideas to add these groups in at the last minute.
Do you think that MPs might fall for this trick, as you describe it? Do you think that they might push through this motion on the grounds of these groups that you've been listed alongside? Or I suppose maybe a question I would want to ask is, are you afraid that they will? How are you feeling right now?
I would hope that they wouldn't, but Palestine Action was formed because we didn't rely on appealing to the politicians and the government to create changes for the people of Palestine. And I understand how the system works, and it's not a democracy by any means. It's likely that they will be whipped. And I think, though, I don't think that's an excuse for us to be complacent in not holding them to account. And every single person who votes against this motion should be known and should be held to account. Who votes for is to be prescribed should be known and held to account for doing this huge attack on civil liberties. And I know if they might be whipped to vote a certain way, but I think that is no excuse. If you are elected by the people, you should stand by the people and not vote the prescription ban through, even if it means losing your party line. Why are you in power when you can't even stand up for your own beliefs or the beliefs of your constituents? And we've had an outpouring of support, outpouring of people, calling and emailing their MPs. So you would hope that they would listen to that voice of reason, because if you are reasonable about this, it is obvious where they should vote. Unfortunately, it echoes why direct action is so necessary. We do not have a reasonable democratic system in this country.
Huda, if you do end up going to prison for this activism, would you regret it?
No, I think we can see what's happening every day to the people of Palestine, and it's the companies working in Britain who are working to perpetuate this, and to do something to stand in the way of that, to do something to severely disrupt the Israeli military supply chain is not something to be ashamed of or scared of the repercussions, when for Palestinians the repercussions are what we're seeing play out in Gaza.
Do you worry at all that your activism could backfire in terms of it becoming a distraction? What is the story that we should be telling here?
Yes and no. As in, we always have an issue with the mainstream media not accurately reporting what is happening in Gaza. But I think it's also really important that people actually consider that when you are effective, and why are we activists? Why are we reporting on Gaza if we are not seeking to be effective? These are the repercussions, and this is what we have to fight. And I truly believe, whatever happens with this prescription, if it is defeated or not, that the end time for Elbit systems in this country is near, because this is desperation. This is desperation by the state. And so if the media want to report on it all day long, that is absolutely fine. We've had a massive surge in people wanting to join Palestine Action, wanting to take direct action. And ultimately, we do this for the people of Palestine. And we will, one way or another, Albert will be completely removed from Britain.
If Palestine Action is prescribed as a terrorist group, is that the end of Palestine Action?
I'm probably not at liberty to say that at the moment, but what I would make really clear is whatever happens to Palestine Action is a name and is a group, but they cannot make direct action the tactic of terrorism. So direct action can most definitely continue against Elbit systems, even if Palestine Action is banned. And I think it's really important that people understand that.
Huda Amori, thank you for joining us on Middle East Eye. There is an important story behind this hardline criminalisation of Palestine Action in the increasing use of emergency powers by states seeking to get a grip on growing pro-Palestinian dissent. In the US, the Trump administration has also sought, unsuccessfully, to deport pro-Palestine student activists using an obscure law designed to prevent adverse foreign policy consequences. But the root story underpinning it all is the ongoing siege of Gaza, which is facing its 633rd day of war. Today, the Gaza Health Ministry reported over 56,531 Palestinians have been killed and 133,642 wounded, with more than 11,000 people missing, many believed to be buried beneath the rubble. Since May the 27th, the targeted shooting of Palestinians at food distributions has seen 580 people killed and over 4,000 wounded, while the enclave remains under a tight aid blockade. And since January 2024, all countries under the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice are under a legal obligation to act to prevent plausible genocide in Gaza. This includes the UK, where Palestine Action is campaigning.